Welcome to Moving Through and Beyond, a podcast dedicated to sharing inspired journeys of redefining life, vision, and purpose after immense hardship and grief. My goal with this podcast is to give you hope and to let my guest journeys inspire you to make the choice to keep looking up. I'm your host, Carey Conley. Hi, everyone. Welcome to this very special episode of Moving Through and Beyond. I am so excited about this because this was a very organic thing that kind of happened. As many of you know, that I am on a mission to be working with young adults, early 20s to early 30s, and especially because of what I know what's happening in mental health for young adults. And going to be making some really powerful announcements coming soon. But I'm excited to have a brand new part of this team, the podcast team. Ethan joined me today. He's been the person behind the camera when I'm usually sitting here interviewing people. And one day, in between interviews, we started a conversation, and I asked him to kind of describe to me what he thought was happening in his generation right now. So he's usually behind the camera, but now he's here with me. So Ethan, how fun is this?
It is pretty fun. Honestly, I wasn't expecting to be on, but here I am.
Here you are.
It's a nice change of pace.
It is a nice change of pace. And I love talking to young adults like you, especially young men, because as you know, we interviewed somebody earlier today that's doing a lot of work in mental health space with young men. I think she shared a statistic that was shocking to me, that it was 80% of young men, 80% of suicides that happen are men.
Yeah.
So I'm thrilled that you're going to be able to come on and kind of share a little bit about you and your insights into that. So, so tell me a little bit about your story, your backstory.
I mean, how far back do you want me to go?
How far you want to go?
Okay. I mean, I have lived in Arizona all of my life. I grew up playing a lot of sports all the way into high school until I kind of realized that I was playing sports because my family wanted me to and not because I wanted to. And I kind of realized that I wanted to go down a more creative path. I was always really into, film, movies, working with cameras, music, performance, things like that. Yeah. It just took me a little longer than usual to get into it. I wish I had gotten into it earlier, but it's kind of just used to doing what other people expected of me, I guess.
Yeah. Which is pretty common, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. Mm-hmm. I lived in Arizona my whole life. Grew up down in Gilbert, and then I moved up here to more the metropolitan area in my later years.
Scottsdale metropolitan.
Yeah, Scottsdale, Tempe, Phoenix, big three. But yeah, I tried out college for a little bit, kind of not really knowing what I wanted to do. That was when COVID got really big. Yeah. So that kind of, put a stick in everything. So I took a break from that, kind of took a little bit to focus on what I really wanted to do, tried out a couple jobs. Still honestly figuring it out. Yeah. I'm sure lots of other people are, but yeah, I guess that's where I am today.
Yeah. I love that you're talking about the pressure that your family put on you about sports, and not just your family. I'm sure the schools do it, your peers do it. My son, I think, was the same way. Ethan, he played tennis all the way up through his first year of college, but he also had very much a creative side. Yeah, that I think he would have loved to have developed more of. But this world is so achievement driven that I think it really downplays people who want to go a more creative route. Mm-hmm. Especially if your parents are really wanting, like mine. I wanted to be a singer and actress growing up. Yeah. So my parents thought that was super cute, but they also made the message loud and clear that I was going to go to college and get a good degree so I could get a good job.
Sure.
And that didn't work out so well for me. So I've been an entrepreneur for over 30 years. But you say that you wish you would have found out earlier. I'm looking at you going, how old are you, 22?
22, yeah.
And you're already starting to take your own path, which is great.
Yeah, it's weird being 22 and you already feel like you're running out of time.
Yeah, why do you feel that? Because I hear that a lot from
I'm
other
not
people
sure. And I don't know if it's just a sign of the times or how fast things are moving nowadays, but time always feels like such a slippery object, and then it's moving so fast, and before you know it, you've missed out on opportunities, or you're running behind.
Wow.
I don't know why it feels like that, but
do you think social media has anything to do with it? Or you can see
I
other
think
people?
so. I think so in the sense that social media is such an easy way for you to compare yourself to
Yeah.
other people. A lot of people love to say, oh, I just like to check in with people. I just like to, post for myself. Whether you like it or not, you're either consciously or subconsciously
Right.
looking at all these other people and like, oh, wow, they did that. Or wow, they're doing that.
Right.
Wow, that person's the same age as me, but substantially more successful. And then
Yes.
it's hard not to, feel
least
bad
we
about
think they
yourself.
are.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And maybe some people are better at it than I am. And this is just a me thing, but I think it's a common thing. And I think that definitely attributes to, feeling like you're mismanaging your time or using it incorrectly, or, you should have made different career decisions or, decisions on your life path.
Yeah.
It's, you have people in your life who put expectations on you, but
Sure.
then sometimes you create these expectations in your head based on what you see from other people,
Yeah. So when I asked you that day that we were talking what was happening, what you thought was happening, and the first word I think you said to me was pressure. A lot of pressure.
Yeah, I think
Right.
so. Especially, personally growing up too, I want to disclaimer this by saying I still have lots of friends who are members of this faith, and I believe that everyone has the right to choose their own path,
Yes.
and their own beliefs. But I grew up a member of the LDS, the Mormon Church, and for a long time, I just the way they structure it and the beliefs and what they teach, I personally felt that it was very like shame based and a lot of like expectations and like there's no room for error. And so growing up, I think that kind of instilled this like perpetual like anxiety and like worry about if I'm doing the right thing or if I'm living up to expectations or letting people down. And so, I grew up most of my childhood, I was living like that and, just kind of doing what people told me where I was expected to or taught to. And I think that, that's a big part of the pressure I feel in life. And I think a lot of people, whether it's religion or, their family structure or, what their siblings or their parents have done, I think it's very common for pressure to be applied to people very young instead of giving them kind of like some leeway or some openness to kind of explore what they want to do. It's, your brothers did sports or your brothers, your brother's going to college for this, you should do that. It's, I think it's just I'm not sure why, but it's very common for pressure to be applied to someone, especially when they're young. And I think that carries on later into life. And then, you kind of have to undo that. And then that takes more time. And so, I don't know. I'm kind of rambling, but
No, you're doing great because I think that so many young adults your age are feeling the same way. And that's why I wanted to have you on here, Ethan, is because I know because individually young adults come to me and tell me these things, but collectively, do they talk to each other about it? Probably not.
No. And I think, it's talked about a lot how it's much more common for women to, talk to each other about their emotions and their struggles and what they're going through. But for, men, it's much more uncommon. And, there's this like societal kind of, not that it should be a norm, but it is kind of a norm where, we have to be, stronger and closed off and kind of keep it inside because it's a sign of weakness if you let it out. And going back to things being taught to you when you're younger, that's kind of what I expected, me to be growing up, but
it's probably
just
modeled as well.
Yeah, it's so like counterintuitive. It doesn't make any sense for you to keep it in. There are people who love you and are there for you, and it doesn't matter how many friends you have. If you've got a lot or a little bit, you have people in life that care for you, and you expressing those emotions and sharing what you're going through isn't going to scare them away. And if it does, they're not friends you want to have.
Right.
And it's just, I've made a personal effort to, talk to my friends, tell my friends I love them, spend time with them, talk to them about my life, ask them questions about their life.
Yeah.
Because for them to care for you, you've got to show them you care too. It's about, that reciprocating those. And I think it's just very important and it's very uncommon. And I think that's why it's so also common for people to feel so lonely, especially men.
Yeah, I was gonna say the loneliness thing, because I read statistically that your generation is the loneliest generation.
Yeah.
And that shocked me because I thought it was going to be my age group. And I think there's a lot of factors for that, but it's also a slippery slope because when you do feel alone, this is where I think your mental health is at risk.
Yeah.
And that, again, can turn into a lot of different things.
Yeah.
So I commend you as a young man that you want to really make an effort to do that, and to open up those doors for them to be able to talk to you about what they have going on, and you as well, right? We also talked a little bit about money pressure.
Oh yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. I think that is probably one of the biggest pressures that you all have.
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it's just the way life, the common life path is structured is, the second you're out of high school, that's something you've instantly got to start managing and worrying about. Some people go to college and take on, insane amounts of student
amounts,
debt.
yeah.
Some people's parents allow them to stay with them. But some parents you've got to get out. You're an adult, get out of here. And, they've got to pay rent, find an apartment. And I mean, at least I know where we're living, rent's only going up, and, the price of living is increasing exponentially as well.
Yeah.
And so, that's just another pressure that's applied. And, on top of worrying about yourself and what you're doing, you're also worrying about if you just have the means to live, the financial means to live.
Yep.
And so when times get tough, it's hard not to also attribute that to yourself. Like, what am I doing wrong?
Right.
Why am I not making enough money to live? Is that my fault? Is that society's fault?
Right.
Is it the government?
Yeah.
It's just,
it's
a lot.
too much pressure. And I don't, I graduated from college like 1,000 years ago. And I don't remember coming out of college with the amount of pressure that you all have on you. And you said something so wise that I've repeated it to several people. And the biggest reason why I wanted to bring you on here is I said, how else are you feeling about starting your adult life? And you said, I feel like I'm starting my adult life in a hostile environment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about that. What do you mean by that?
I guess when I say a hostile environment, I mean, it does go back to feeling that pressure. And, comparing yourself to others, it just feels like kind of everything's out to get you.
Like?
I mean, just going back to, we were talking about like price of living's going up. It's very, very hard to find a place to situate yourself. It's harder to find, jobs. A lot of jobs ask for, years and years of experience in that field. But how are you going to get experience in that field if all of them require the experience before? I mean, the hostility of expectations from your parents or peers. I might have just said it, but the comparison, some people are more than others, very, very vain, and they love, showing off what they're doing. It goes back to social media. Stuff on there isn't necessarily real, but when you see it, you compare yourself to other people, and, it feels like a competition a lot of times.
Yes. I think the other thing for you all is what's happening, especially in this country, that got magnified through COVID. And so when I was coming out of college, everything, we didn't question really so much of what's going on with the government or question our health and are we in the right hands. And, there was we didn't have those uncertainties like you all do now. And I think that's a big part of the hostility feeling, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, because who do you trust?
I don't know.
That's what I'm talking about, right? So for you right now, either you're 22, you want to be on the creative side, you're now working with this team. How does it feel to you, because this is the exercise I do, right, with the vision work that I do. When I ask you to think about 3 years from now and how old you're going to be and how old your family members are going to be.
Yeah.
And then to start, if I were to ask you to literally do this exercise, write out for me in great detail in every area of your life what you want it to look like 3 years from now. How does that make you feel?
you'd hope someone would say, oh, hopeful, like I'm excited to see what the future holds, but I more feel a sense of uncertainty, and I've always been a more anxious person. I've obviously worked on that over the years, but I do feel more of a sense of uncertainty and improbability. Like there's more variables that could happen, and it's I don't know, it's more scary, I think. Just anything can happen, and I kind of going back to saying I'm still figuring out what I want to do with my life and my career and the life I want to make for myself. But you feel like you have to have that set in stone, written out, signed off, right when you start your adult life. And I don't know, I just think it's a lot less of like a straight road, and
for sure,
more like I'm trying to think of comparison. You're like a hiking trail, you're going around and up and down, and it's.
I think I've done this exercise now with thousands of people, right?
Yeah.
And mostly through my career until recently, they've been people around my ages, or not as old as I am, but they're pretty established.
Sure.
And when they write their vision, they can get super clear on what they want their lifestyle to look like. They just don't know the how. And I tell them not to worry about the how, because the how will show up, because that's how it happened for me. I wrote my first vision statements when I was 28, and I knew I wasn't going to do the 9-to-5 thing very well.
Right.
I knew I wanted to have my own business, work from home, especially when I was going to have kids. I just didn't know what that vehicle was going to be. But because I got really, really clear on the lifestyle I wanted, the vehicle showed up. And that's something I think I need to keep encouraging your generation to know, that it won't be a straight path. Things will happen, like that happened for me, losing my husband and my son. That was definitely not a part of my vision, obviously. You just have to get really clear, Ethan, on what you want your life to look like, right?
Yeah.
And not be afraid of it, because things will happen.
Yeah.
It's guaranteed. I just think your generation has a heightened sense of that because of what we've been through in the past 5 years.
Yeah, I think so, definitely.
Yeah, because up to that point, most of the people you're in your generation have not had something super traumatic happen to them. So COVID and all the things that came with COVID was the first hit, right?
Yeah.
And so now you have what I call, and I have this, the other shoe dropping syndrome, right? Where, okay, that happened and you didn't expect it. So now what's going to happen next?
Yeah.
Right? So do you feel that?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
Just feels like, if that can happen,
Right.
What else can happen?
Right.
No, yeah, I definitely think that's true.
Yeah. And I can, like I said, I can relate to that because I have that. And I've worked really hard on changing that because I can't live my life that way every day, worrying, right? I just have to keep moving forward and keep moving forward. But what helps me is having that really powerful vision, right? It's exciting for you to be at this stage, to even be thinking about your future. I want you guys to be so excited about that. Because you're thinking you're so old, and I'm looking at you going, man, I wish I could be 22.
I got to keep telling myself I still got my whole life ahead of me
true.
when I feel like I'm falling behind.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't want you guys to feel that way.
I know. It's just interesting that it's such a common feeling for people so young.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, going back to my religious upbringing, they kind of expect you to, you go and serve a religious mission and you come back, and then your job is to either get a degree or get married.
Yep. We talked about that a minute ago too.
And it's just, that's a big step in your life, but they, got to do it so early. And I don't know. It's just, it's just a lot of different things come from different places telling you you've got to have it figured out.
Yeah. So where do you find the support when you're feeling that way, like overwhelmed or anxious, or what helps you?
I guess when I feel anxious or overwhelmed, I honestly, writing things down helps me a lot, and like itemizing things. Like even if I just have, tasks to do, or, I've got something to plan out, or, things to set aside for what I want to do in the future for success, or even just to figure out what I want, writing it out step by step helps me visualize it instead of, it just kind of being like a big pot of crap to get done in my head. I think writing it out really helps a lot. You know, growing up, back to my upbringing, I felt a lot of pressure and anxiety around that and what my parents wanted from me. But, you know, after leaving the church I was in, my parents followed suit, and, you know, they've kind of, I don't want to, you know, think too highly of myself, but I kind of led by example, and they've kind of learned from that. And so they're actually very supportive of me now. And I talk to them about, you know, my doubts or struggles, talking to them, or, you know, talking to my friends, what they're going through. I don't think a lot of people realize that there's so many other people that are going through the same things as you, but you never know because people don't ask.
Right.
It's a thing.
Yes.
You know, people ask, you know, how are you? How are you doing? How's work? Oh yeah, good.
Yeah.
It's not really good. I highly doubt that. How about you be real for me for a second?
Right.
You know?
Yeah. I think holding space for each other that way, because you are going through something. You know, one of the interviews you and I did earlier this morning was this woman talking about how she gets in front of all these cadets at the military bases, right? And tells them, I want you all to know you're all going through something right now. Yeah. You're going through a struggle. We just have to admit that more often.
Yes.
So
some are bigger than others too.
Yes.
But they're all valid, and they're all worthy of sharing.
Yeah.
And people also don't realize that you sharing your struggle doesn't make you look weak, doesn't make you look, you know, like you're doing something wrong. Actually,
I've learned, because I've been one of those people most of my life that I had to be strong, you know, show strength, you know. But I've learned that when I share my weaknesses or how I'm really feeling about something, that's a source of strength.
Yeah, it helps other people to hear that. People.
Yeah. Well, it's so funny that you and I were talking a minute ago about that you just celebrated your 3-year anniversary with your girlfriend.
I did, yeah.
I think that's very so great. Exciting. And I said to you, okay, so what'd you do on your 3-year anniversary? And you told me what you did. I said, okay, so you didn't propose. And what'd you say to me? I said,
what did I say? I said I'm not a Mormon anymore. That's what I said.
And why? And I said, why did you say that?
Because going back to that was like the norm. Thing, right. Like, you gotta get married. And I know lots of people who, not in a negative light, like that, if that's what they feel their life path is going to be, and it's comfortable for them, good for them. But that was the norm to get married so early on.
Yeah.
And I just think, at least in our younger age, like I'm in my 20s, like that time is, I personally believe, is meant for you to, you know, explore new experiences, careers, you know, education, you know, move to different places, go to different places,
figure out who you really
try
are.
Different things. Yeah, figure out who you really are, because I think, you know, committing yourself to someone that early, again, this is just my personal belief. I don't want anyone to take offense to this, but, you know, you've got to figure yourself out fully and be comfortable and, you know, content in what you want for yourself and your future plans before you fully commit yourself to someone else.
Yeah.
Because I think that's just going to leave room for, you know, contention and disagreement and, you know, not being on the same page.
Yeah.
You know, and you, not saying you can't date or, you know, have a partner, but
I think you are so wise, my friend.
Well, thank you.
So wise. And the reason I laughed at that, because that's not a religious thing. That's a cultural thing overall. I was married at 22.
Yeah.
Because I met my husband in high school, and we'd been dating for 5 years already.
Right.
In hindsight, I wish I would have taken the time to live on my own for a little while, figure out what I was really all about, right? Because it was two people coming together because of the culture and because of what we thought was right to do.
Yeah.
That later became big problems in our marriage. So we worked through it, but I think that you're very wise to think that you're two whole beings coming together, not two people trying to fill each other's needs, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, sometimes it still works out. Yeah. People there, you know, there's high school sweethearts who are still married, or you know, people who met so early on, but, you know, it also sometimes doesn't work out, and it causes a lot of issues. It's actually funny. My parents are probably going to be upset that I'm telling this, but they dated for, I'd say it was like 6 weeks.
Okay.
And then my dad proposed. Like, they were a bit older. They were a bit older than the usual expected age. But, you know, they they're still together and very happy. But after, us, leaving our church and, figuring things out for ourselves, my mother's actually gone back and started getting a degree, and kind of realizing, there's these things about myself that I'm so passionate about that I just didn't get a chance to do when I was younger because
Sure.
I became a mother and a stay-at-home mom, and I think that's just an example of really taking that time to figure out yourself, and it doesn't come quick. It takes years. That's why even your 20s, that's why you got to figure it out then.
Yeah, well, good for her.
Yeah.
I think parents learn more from their kids than they do from anything else. I learned a lot from my kids and still do from my daughter, who's now like my mother.
Yeah.
We've kind of switched roles because she's way smarter than me.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on here and sharing.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I think it's going to be very enlightening for young adults to hear more young adults talking like this. I'm excited to interview more people like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I appreciate it. Is there anything else you want to share?
Anything else I'd like to share? Just don't close yourself off from other people. Don't think you have to have it all figured out right now.
Yeah.
Be open to failure, successes, new experiences, because you've got so much time ahead of you to do it all and figure it out.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Ethan.
Yeah, no problem.
So I'm very excited, friends, because this is kind of a direction that I've been talking about going for a really long time. So I want you to stay tuned for my next episode next week. I have a very big announcement coming that I've been working on for a long time, and I can't even begin to tell you how excited I am about it. So keep listening, keep sharing. I appreciate you listening to this episode today, and I'm here to just keep reminding you to keep looking up. If you found this episode inspiring or helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member. In order to be successful on this mission, I can't do it alone. Connect with me at www.careyconley.com, and don't forget to sign up for my weekly Do It On Purpose newsletter. Let's build this life-giving vision movement together to end this epidemic, save lives, and create purpose.